The beauty of Los Angeles, the warm climate, the opulence, the glitz and glam, its reputation precedes itself. But what simmers beneath the surface? What horrors lurk just when we think we are safe? The fake out is a commonly used trope in horror films. We think we're getting our happy ending. The villain is defeated. Mom decides to give up her drinking. Your friends are ready to literally drive off into the sunset. And then the truth hits. And it hits hard. We are then overwhelmingly reminded that reality isn't always a welcoming place. Hey kids, welcome home. Today we are taking our paranormal pit stop in a beautiful Los Angeles community by the name of Los Feliz to investigate Dr. Harold Perelson and his surface-level perfect life as a respected doctor, husband, and father. But you all know how these visits end. Living happily ever after is not in the cards for the Perelson family. $2475 Glendover Place, a handsome Spanish revival-style home residing in the wealthy Los Feliz development of Los Angeles, would have been considered the dream home of anyone who saw it from the outside back in the day. However, a shift in perception would be deemed normal once you realize that inside was not even remotely a dream and was, in fact, an actual nightmare, as it is the site of a brutal murder-suicide conducted under the hands of patriarch Dr. Harold Perelson, who murdered his defenseless sleeping wife Lillian, and would then make an attempt at the life of his eldest daughter Judy, before taking a lethal dose of Nembutal and barbiturates to end his own life. But what led to this decision? How could a family that was so seemingly happy on the surface meet such a brutal end? And, as we're prone to ask on this channel, what comes after the end? Harold Nathan Perelson, the eldest of 4 children in his family, was born in 1909. His parents were poor immigrants from Poland, and his father worked as a printer's clerk to provide for the family after they settled in Queens, New York. His humble upbringing and his family's financial troubles did not prevent him from attending and graduating from medical school, as he was known to be quite intelligent and excelled academically. Upon graduation, he would move to California and was successful in seeking out better opportunities for himself. He became a prominent surgeon, specializing in cardiology and the study of allergies. A few of his accolades over the years include the writing of a well-respected clinical report entitled The Electrocardiogram in Familial Periodic Paralysis, which would go on to be featured in the magazine American Heart Journal in June of 1949, his repeated and well-respected keynote speeches provided at medical conferences all across the country, being named the assistant head of cardiology at Los Angeles County General, Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, and the Santa Fe Hospital of Los Angeles. Most notable, however, was his successfully attaining a patent on a very profitable and efficient new method of syringe, which is still commonly used today. It would appear that Dr. Harold Perelson's life was an unmitigated success. He had wealth and a bit of acclaim, but there were signs of trouble that no one could predict would lead to devastating results. Perelson's relationship with his business partner Edward Shostak dissolved. It is alleged that Shostak attempted to steal the design for the syringe that he had offered to help Perelson get put on the market, with the intention of cutting Harold out of the deal entirely. This resulted in 2 years of legal disputes, in which Harold demanded $100,000 in damages, which would be the equivalent to nearly $1 million by today's standards. The legal fees and fees resulting in filing for the patent and the process of getting it readily available for use had begun to chip away at Dr. Perelson's finances, and it was a devastating blow when he was awarded a mere $24,000, less than a quarter of his anticipated settlement. The evening of December 6th in 1959 would begin in typical fashion for the Perelson family. In a pseudo-Norman Rockwell-esque setting, Patriarch Harold returns from a long day of work to be greeted by his wife and children, Judy, 18, Joel, 13, and Debbie, 11. The family of 5 would then have a nice dinner together, discussing the events of their days and just enjoying each other's company. After the younger children had been tucked into bed and eldest Judy would retire to her room to complete her homework, wife and mother Lillian would wrap Christmas presents and then retire to the master bedroom to read for a bit. Harold would remain on the first floor of the home until he was sure that his wife had fallen asleep for the night, and then he made his way upstairs to read Dante's Divine Comedy. After making note of a section that he found particularly interesting, he himself fell asleep. Sometime around 5 a.m., Harold awoke, placed the novel on the nightstand, and made his way down to the kitchen to retrieve a small tool chest that he kept there. He removed the ball-peen hammer and walked back up the stairs and into the master bedroom where his wife was still sleeping peacefully. He then raised the hammer and brought it crashing down on Lillian's head again and again and again. It was at this point that he casually walked into eldest daughter Judy's bedroom and attempted to attack her as well. It is believed that the fact that she had been awoken by the sounds of her mother's murder, this would save her from a similar fate, as she was able to properly defend herself and deflect her father's blows with a hammer from connecting with her skull at full impact. While she still took a hit to the head, she was left disoriented but very much alive. She also let out a blood-curdling scream that not only alerted her younger siblings to the horrors of what was occurring, but were in fact also loud enough to awaken the neighbors. Upon hearing the screams of her big sister, Debbie emerged from her bedroom to see what the commotion was, to which Harold called out to her, telling her, "Go back to bed, baby. This is just a nightmare." He then proceeded back into Judy's room to, most likely, attempt to finish the job. However, while he was distracted by Debbie, Judy had regained some of her senses, enough so that she had fled the house and ran next door. The neighbors, having been awoken by the sounds of her screaming, came immediately to the door and let her in. Upon discovering that she had blood streaming from the wound on her head, the neighbors immediately called the police and requested a patrol car and an ambulance be sent. Back at the Perelson residence, Debbie, realizing that she was very much awake and not having a nightmare, as her father would have led her to believe, fetched her brother, and they, too, ran from the house. Harold, realizing that there was no escape from what he had done, took a lethal dose of Nembutal and other barbiturates from the medicine cabinet and laid down on the floor next to the bed in Judy's room, and within moments, he was gone, overdosed, laying next to the blood-soaked bed in which the daughter he attempted to murder had once slept. The scene left behind was gruesome, and the prevailing question still remains unanswered. Why? The closest anyone has come to a potential motive relate back to the financial setbacks that Dr. Perelson had experienced. It would also be later reported that Harold had made several attempts on his life prior to and leading up to the events of December 6th. Some say that there was a clue in the page the Divine Comedy had fallen upon before Harold fell asleep. Canto 1, which read, "Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a dark forest, for the straightforward pathway had been lost." But The exact motive and what initiated the attack is a secret that Dr. Perelson took with him to the grave. The Perelson home would later be sold via probate auction to a Lincoln Heights couple by the name of Emily and Julian Enriquez for an undisclosed amount. The couple would own the residence, but would never live there. The home acted more as a storage facility than a residence. The pair didn't even bother to remove the Perelson family belongings from the home, leaving an eerie snapshot into that last day, as the Christmas presents would remain untouched and still wrapped, waiting for the Perelson children, who would never get the opportunity to open them. Upon Emily's death in 1994, her son Rudy would inherit the property. At the time, Rudy lived very near the residence in Washington Heights. However, he too would refuse to live in the home. He stated, "I don't know that I want to live there, or even stay there." His one contribution to the estate was the inclusion of security cameras, as several curious people have attempted to trespass onto the property and catch a glimpse of the murder house. And of course, the neighbors have a strong sense of community and make it quite difficult for anyone to do a thorough search. The home remained vacant until 2016, when it was sold to Lisa Bloom and her husband, Braden Pollock. Bloom is most notably the daughter of famed women's rights activist and attorney Gloria Allred, and is herself an attorney. The pair bought the property in the hopes of remodeling it and making it into a home of their own, and would have been the first residents of the property since the horrific events of December 6th. However, the financial and emotional toll that the remodel and rebuild took on the pair led to the decision to put it back on the market in 2019, where it would sit until a mere 4 months ago, when it would sell to an undisclosed party for the low asking price of a mere $2.3 million. As we've learned on our voyages thus far, the horrific events of the past tend to leave an impression and sensation of the evils that once occurred. Within the neighborhood of Los Feliz, the current residents may want the past to stay buried, but, as detailed by the sensational Haley Reese, there is an undercurrent that cannot be ignored by those that venture past the gates, and even for those who don't make it that far.
Ghost hunters were visiting, people were attempting to squat there, children were going there to make trouble or tell scary stories about what had happened. But amongst all of these things, though each individual going there had a different motive behind it, they all had very similar terrifying experiences. And this is where the paranormal side really ties in. Even just roaming outside of the house, plenty of people hear whispers, voices, screams, moans, noises. People hear the sounds of a woman screaming, and a woman specifically screaming "no," followed by an eerie, unsettling silence. There's also a male voice that is said to moan and act as though he's in despair, but that too winds up followed by silence. People see faces staring at them from outside of the windows, and even more specifically, the face of a woman. And anytime people try to capture this on camera or get any sort of real evidence of it, it either doesn't show up in the camera or she vanishes and disappears. People have claimed to go there and feel overwhelming feelings of dread. Some people feel fear that something horrible is about to happen, followed by the screams of a woman. And overall, the whole entire house has such an eerie feeling.
At first glance, the YouTube channel of Jason Horton seems to lean more toward the comedic, with public freakout compilations being a majority of his uploads. However, it would seem that, of late, he has developed a bit of a taste for the paranormal. Living in Los Angeles does come with the benefits of hopping in the car to satisfy that curiosity, as he would do so making his own visit to the infamous abandoned residence.
Let me grab some video for this specifically, take some photos, and I was like, you know what, I can just roll down my window, take it out, I don't need to get out, don't want to bother anybody. So I go to roll down my window. My window does not roll down. It's electric. It has always worked. It's never not worked. All the others were working. It was unlocked. I was like, why will this not unlock? I was like, you know what, fine. So I get out and I was like, all right, now I'm even being more invasive. So I go to take some video and my camera on my phone will not work. It's not happening. So then I refresh it. Do it again. Won't happen. Shut the phone off, turn it on, still won't happen, and eventually I'm just getting really, really frustrated. It's a really creepy vibe because I've talked about this house so much and I'm there, and I feel like I'm just experiencing whatever I'm experiencing, and I'm looking at it and I was like, there's nobody up in there working or anything like that. You see this barbed wire, but I swear, I'm a skeptic, it's in my mind, but I had to focus in on one of the video because I was like, I swear those look like legs in the doorway, and it's very far away. I had to zoom in with my camera, and I was positive someone was there. Probably not, but all the circumstances in the environment kind of put me in that headspace. So I'm like, let me get out of here. Enough's enough. So I managed to turn around, and I'm really upset about the window knocking down. I was like, oh, come on, I don't want to get this fixed. I get to the bottom of the hill, Vermont and Los Feliz, and as soon as I hit the bottom, the window just goes down.
The events of that infamous evening were, of course, horrific, tragic, and gruesome, and were it not for the fact that the details of that evening have been so widely reported, a terrible element of the California Civil Code would make it possible that prospective buyers could have no knowledge of the murder-suicide that occurred. The California Civil Code has a 3-year rule, which states that a realtor is only obligated to disclose a material defect, such as a violent death, if the death occurred within 3 years of the date an offer is made to purchase the home. This murder occurred 62 years ago. The home is now quite literally a shell of its former self, as it was gutted by Bloom and Pollock before they made the decision of placing it back on the market. And one can only hope that there is the potential that the home will once again be filled with the sounds of children and laughter and the happiness of family, and that maybe this time the potential for a happily ever after might still be possible. As we pack up and prepare to head on our next paranormal pit stop, I have to say once again a big thank you for your support. I am grateful to each and every one of you for being a part of this journey with me, and I hope you're enjoying these frightening field trips, and I look forward to many more to come. Because our last vote required a tiebreaker, I think you all know where the next leg of the journey will take us. So be sure to stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll consider giving it a like and subscribing to be a part of the Press Start family. These are the easiest ways to show your support. And if you have the ability and want to do so, in ways to show further support, I have also linked my social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon in the description below. The world can be a lonely and dark place. Please remember to take care of yourselves, and if nothing else, that I love you all. Good night.